So just last week I reviewed the OnePlus 8, a clever wee £600 smartphone boasting a Snapdragon 865 chipset, full 5G connectivity, a slick 90Hz display and plenty of premium tech. And then following that, for these past few days I've had the Realme X50 Pro stuffed in my jeans, which is another £600 blower packing the Snapdragon 865, a tasty bit of 5G, those 90Hz visuals and enough slick tech to give any gadget fan some seriously damn draws. Now I'm already a big fan of Realme's more budget-friendly handsets, the likes of the Realme 6 and 6 Pro, which cost around that sort of £200 to £300 price point. The question is, can Realme hack it with the big boys when it comes to the premium flagship tech? Well, I've had my SIM stuffed inside the Realme X50 Pro, and here is my full in-depth review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, while the Realme X50 Pro sports a 6.44-inch display, which sounds almost compact by today's ridiculous standards, this is still a big, hefty slab of a smartphone. Unfortunately, the screen doesn't curve around the edges majestically like it does on the likes of the OnePlus 8 smartphones, so the Realme X50 Pro is a bit of a wide boy, although thankfully obviously nothing approaching iPhone standards. The overall design is definitely a bit been there, done that, but it's not offensive, and you've got a choice of two colours, either this rather nice moss green or this lovely rust red finish, both featuring a matte glass design. This means the greasy prints don't chuck too easily at all on the Realme X50 Pro's arse end, so that's great news if you want to text your besties while munching down on a late night kebab special. And no worries if the X50 slips out of your oily, meaty grasp either, because both this review model and my original pre-production handset have taken a fair few tumbles, and you know what, they are absolute units. That Gorilla Glass 5 plate in front and back has kept them in perfect condition. And you also get a pre-installed screen protector to keep that mighty display scratch free as well, and the protector itself is all banged up, but the actual display itself is still in perfect nick. And there's no proper full-on water resistance or anything here on the Realme X50 Pro, but it's been absolutely fine with a wee bit of moisture, no worries if you get splashed. The in-display fingerprint sensor also works a charm, backed by respectable enough face unlock. You can set it to work only when your eyes are detected, although it does struggle a bit in low light. And I've certainly been enjoying that 6.44-inch Super AMOLED display as well, which stands tall against rivals around this same sort of price point. Running through the standard checklist, the Realme X50 Pro basically ticks all of those metaphorical boxes. HDR 10 Plus support, yeah. Hits plenty of nits on that top brightness for a squint-free outdoor experience, yeah, no worries at all. Bit of 90Hz refresh rate action so everything looks smoother than an octopus taking a bath in KY jelly. Done and done. And if you want, you can even leave the Realme X50 Pro to pick its own refresh rate dynamically based on whatever you're up to at the time in order to preserve a bit of battery life when it's not necessary to have that 90Hz running. Colours are on the cool and poppy side by default, but as with basically every phone out there, you can fiddle about with the output in the settings to suit what you're watching and your own particular tastes. That Full HD Plus resolution keeps everything perfectly sharp. You have to watch 2K content side by side with a Quad HD handset to notice any real difference, as you'll see in my full comparison with the OnePlus 8 Pro and Oppo's Find X2 Pro. I can see some people taking against that massive double selfie camera, however, which forms a sizable splat here in the top corner. You have the option to mask that pinhole camera from view when you're using quite a lot of apps, but not all of them, so the likes of Netflix and YouTube, for instance, you've got no control over that at all. So as you'll see, when you go full screen, unfortunately it does kind of intrude on the action, but nowhere near as bad as the likes of those stupid big fat mustache notches on the likes of the iPhones. And those stereo speakers are impressively clear and punchy on top volume, so you can enjoy a podcast, show or whatever you want without headphones, even in a really noisy room. The OnePlus 8 Pro pop out of their metaphorical womb. And that stereo speaker setup is great for a bit of gaming action on the likes of PUBG Mobile as well, so you can tell where those sneaky gits are creeping up on you from. Definitely good stuff. On the software front, the Realme X50 Pro of course runs Android 10 with the fresh new Realme UI launcher shoved on top. This is basically ColorOS with a few little tweaks here and there, offering pretty much the exact same features and general layout. You've got all the great Android 10 stuff in there, like that dark mode, plus a few bonus bits like a very helpful one-handed feature, which is actually quick and easy to activate even with those gesture navigations enabled. Like ColorOS, the Realme UI settings menu is a bit of a state, however you do have to definitely troll through it in order to find certain features at times. Some stuff is really buried away in there, but do not worry, I'm going to do you fine folk a full in-depth Realme UI tips and tricks guide to show you some of my favourite features, some of the best bits that are hidden away in there, so stay tuned for that. Stuffed inside of this hefty slab, you also get the super premium Snapdragon 865 platform backed by up to 12 gigs of DDR5 RAM and UFS 3.0 superfast storage to boot. So I probably won't be massively shocking anybody when I say that the performance is really rather bloody good. PUBG Mobile unfortunately topped off at the ultra frame rates of 40 FPS, but it's stuck there dependably with no dips, and you have the nifty game space tools to block notifications and record your mad skills and so on and so on. The only thing I really noticed was that the Realme X50 Pro's display wasn't the most responsive despite the supposed 180Hz touch feedback. I sometimes struggled with fast turning and firing while moving at the same time. And when we are eventually allowed to set foot outside our homes again, the good news is the Realme X50 Pro sports a good bit of 5G support for gaming on the go, and there's a good bit of Wi-Fi 6 action in there as well. Now originally I was admittedly a little bit worried that the 4200 mAh battery might struggle compared to some bigger rivals, but thankfully I never had to plug in the Realme X50 Pro before slipping into my Jimmy Jams. Although admittedly, once I bumped up that screen tech so it was on 90Hz full time, I did a good bit of media streaming, good bit of gaming, I did come sphincter clenchingly close to running the Realme X50 dry in a single day, just made it to bedtime. Just. Certainly no complaints with that bonkers fast super dart charging, however. At 65 watts, it'll basically almost fill up the Realme X50 Pro in just over half an hour. A little bit of trickle charge action towards that final 100%, but certainly half an hour at the charge, that'll do you the full day pretty much every time. So let's finish up with a look at that quad lens camera, comprising a 64 megapixel primary snapper, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, and finally a depth sensor for your portrait shots. I found the camera was basically okay for everyday action, although my test photos often lacked a natural finish, especially those taken indoors where everything looks bizarrely rendered. You've got an AI mode which tweaks the settings for more hyperreal results, for instance boosting those hues when you're shooting plant life, although I also found this stripped away some of the detail at times and can be a bit over the top. If you want a high-res image packed with plenty of detail, then no worries at all, you can just swap to the dedicated 64 megapixel mode. As long as lighting conditions are good, you will get wonderfully crisp results, although you'll only really notice the difference when you view on a really big screen. You also have the added bonus of that 2x optical zoom, and this can give you a sharper image when you shoot at a distance, great news when you're trying to snap your pet, or in this case your kid's soft toy, although it is not a patch compared with rival telephoto lenses from the likes of Huawei. The HDR smarts of the Realme X50 Pro are respectable, although it once again faltered on occasion with strong light, producing quite soft results. The low light chops aren't great either, but you do at least have a decent night mode to deal with that when you need to, so no real worries. And if you want to have a bit of a tweak and a fiddle yourself, then the good news is you've got a dedicated Pro mode on here as well, so you can play around with the likes of the white balance, the autofocus, the ISO levels, all of that. You can use the full complement of lenses, including that ultra wide angle lens by somehow weirdly going up there, and you've got a good bit of RAW support as well. And for your home movies, again, the Realme X50 Pro does an alright job with video, but it does definitely, again, falter compared to some rivals. You shoot up to 4K resolution video, but not at 60 FPS. It tops off at 30 FPS for that Ultra HD, and also you can't use the ultra wide angle lens when you're shooting at 4K. For an ultra wide perspective, you'll need to drop video down to full HD, which is a bit soft, but it's fine for capturing shareable clips. But at 4K, you can seamlessly flip between the main and the telephoto lenses with sharp, poppy results. Audio pickup is clear, the focus deals well in decent lighting, and the HDR smarts ain't too bad either, although they are beaten by the OnePlus 8. Swap to the selfie setup and you've got a choice of that 32 megapixel main camera or an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter if you want to get a snapper view in your mates, or in these self-isolating times, maybe just a whole bunch of extra plants and stuff. And if you fancy doing a bit of vlogging, then you can shoot up to full HD resolution video using that front facing camera setup as well, although unfortunately there's no way of actually changing between the two lenses while you're shooting. You have to swap to the other lens and then resume shooting, but the audio pickup is absolutely fine and the results are, they're alright. And that's what I think of the Realme X50 Pro after using it as my full-time blower. So as you can see, a respectable rival to the likes of the OnePlus 8. You've got that gorgeous 90Hz display, you certainly got it in the performance front, that's for damn sure, the likes of the 5G support, the Wi-Fi 6, so it's definitely bang up to date. It's just a shame that the camera tech didn't impress quite as much as the OnePlus 8. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Definitely be great to hear your thoughts. Please do bung them in the comments below, and subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a lovely week. Cheers everyone, love you!